Guys.
That's it. Let's continue. Indeed, right now we are heading into the wild. We're talking about whales. I think it's a fantastic subject to be talking about with the Whale Festival just around the corner. Now, of course, whales make up some of the largest animals in the world. I mean, they've been part of the global heritage for centuries, featured in Bible stories and inspiring literary works like Moby Dick. They've also been even subject to countless films at that. But what do we really know about whales? Now, with the Whale Festival just around the corner, like I've mentioned, we decided to invite Simon this morning from Sea Search to our studio to chat about these beautiful and majestic big sea creatures and share some whale watching tips for us to use this weekend. Simon, lovely to have you with us.
Great, thanks.
Appreciate
nice to
it,
be here.
man. Yeah, I love that we put the spotlight on our whales, man. Beautiful, beautiful creatures. Okay, so let's unpack it first and foremost. I mean, how many species are we looking at?
With the new techniques, there's sort of a few new species being defined here and there around the world, but roughly around 90 species globally.
Really?
Of whale and dolphin, yeah.
That many? I had no idea. And they all form part of the cetacean?
That's right, yeah. So whales, dolphins, and porpoises form cetaceans.
Okay, cool. Now we know that the Whale Festival is taking place. They're in our South African waters as well. But when it comes to whales and where they are, specific spots maybe throughout the course of the year, what drives them there? Is it water temperature? Is it seasonal, or how does it work with them?
We have some species. All the dolphins we have around our coast are resident species, so they live here year round. And we do have one resident whale species, which is the Bruder's whale. But the other whales, the humpback and the right whale, which are come in whale season, are migratory, and they're coming up from the Southern Ocean, the Antarctic areas where they're feeding, and they're coming up to our coast or past our coast to their breeding areas.
Okay. Now I know that we've been also talking over the past while. Overfishing is a big problem. The consumption of fish. That's why we have things like the SASSI list and what we need to be aware of. But does overfishing have an impact on our whales, specifically with regards to whales? I know that whales also eat not only fish, but they also eat krill and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Of course it does. We've had massive effects on the ecosystem as fishermen, as people. In the Southern Ocean, there's an increasing krill fishery, and krill is one of the fundamental prey items for many of the larger whales. And around our coast, we have major issues with our sardine stocks, which are a fundamental prey item for things like Bruder's whales and common dolphins.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, just highlighting the importance of overfishing and the impact that it has on specifically our whales, some of the largest creatures in our oceans as well. Now, for this weekend, aside from Hermanus, where we most often get to see the most beautiful sightings of whales, where else would you be able to see whales doing their thing?
False Bay is actually a really good location at the moment. From shore-based whale watching, you want to be somewhere where there's cliffs, and False Bay, Cape Point is obviously a great location. But anywhere in that Hermanus, Gansbaai area, I've had some of my best sightings from an area called the Kelders, which is just next to Gansbaai. Really lovely sightings there. The animals come in very close to shore, and you don't have quite the crowds that you often have in Hermanus. Along the coast of De Hoop, in the De Hoop Nature Reserve, there's really phenomenal numbers of southern right whale mothers with calves. But because there's a beach there, the whales tend to be a little bit further out. So you don't get them right underneath you like you do where there are cliffs.
Are they mainly here for breeding? Is it breeding season? That's why they are putting up close to our shorelines?
Yeah, for the southern right whales, which is what we're seeing mainly off the southern Cape Coast, very much for breeding. Well, for calving, so for raising the calves for those first few months where they're very small and vulnerable, and also there's a lot of mating activity going on early in the season, certainly.
Awesome. Simon, thank you so much for joining us from Sea Search. We're going to continue with our topic around whales, getting into the very controversial topic of whaling just after this. So call us if you have any wildlife or eco-related questions, 0214309881. That's where you can get us if you want to leave a comment or ask Simon a question around our majestic whales.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh man, it was a great day out. Well done to the team of Woolies and all the youngsters who pulled through to clean the beach of Strandfontein. It was a magical, magical moment indeed. Right now though, back with Simon from Sea Search. We're talking about whales, and as wonderful and majestic whales are, and also despite the whaling ban, they are still being endangered in terms of hunted. And also, it's literally like poaching of any kind. And Simon's here to unpack what that all means for us. But first, we have Kevin from Fishhook on the line. Kevin, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, my brother.
How are you doing? Very well, thank you.
What's your question?
My question has got to do with False Bay, the whales that come to False Bay every year. I live on between the Fishhook and Glencairn area for the last 10 years, and I want to know real quickly, why is it okay for the Navy to be doing their ballistic firing practices during the height of whale season, as they were doing last week, as they've been doing every time I see whales here for the last 5-6 years?
Okay, good question. Simon?
Yeah, thanks for your interest, Kevin. I haven't personally been involved in the issue, but I was under the impression they weren't allowed to fire during whale season. Certainly they should not fire during whale season if they can avoid it. Obviously, navies sometimes get to bypass some of the legislation that commercial entities have to deal with. But certainly loud noises in the ocean are a massive concern for whales and dolphins. They're very acoustically oriented species. They listen to communicate, they communicate vocally. There's been a lot of research showing that animals do move away from loud sounds. They might change their behavior. They might even get injured in certain cases. So Navy should certainly be avoiding the height of whale season if possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. So, yeah, and so definitely not really recommended the loud shooting noises because it can also, I'm sure, disorientate the animals. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the whaling ban or the moratorium. Simon, what exactly does that mean? And also, why has countries like Norway, Iceland and Japan not following suit?
Well, the international moratorium on whaling was signed in 1982 and it came into effect in 1986, I think, around the world. But at that point, most whale stocks had actually been commercially depleted. But there were 3 ways that you could continue whaling legally, which were not signing the moratorium, which is what Norway and Iceland did. Aboriginal whaling, which Americans and the Russians do a lot of Aboriginal, so the Inuit people are still doing these traditional hunts. And then the 3rd way is by issuing what they call a special permit, which is to do scientific catches, and that's what the Japanese do. So all whaling that's happening by those nations is legal whaling. Whether it's ethically okay is a different issue, but it is legal. And most of the stocks that are being taken are fairly healthy stocks. But obviously, it's a practice that's globally, dare I say, going out of fashion. I mean, the world's moved on from whaling, and there are generally, there's good progress in the direction of it dying out as an industry.
Well, I'm glad because they are phenomenal animals. Simon, thank you so much for joining me. I wish we can talk for hours on end about these majestic animals. So make sure to get your binoculars out. On a more positive note, they are going to be around our coastlines and see if you can spot a beautiful, beautiful creature.